The recruitment station on Kepler 442b buzzed with activity as representatives from dozens of species gathered around holographic displays showcasing their military prowess. The Galactic Defense Coalition needed fresh blood for the ongoing war against the Void Hunters, a parasitic alien race that consumed entire star systems. Commander Zekthon of the Craxian Empire stood before a massive crowd, his four arms gesturing dramatically as plasma bolts erupted from his weapon demonstration. "Behold the superiority of Craxian heavy assault tactics. Our soldiers can punch through a starship hull from 2 kilometers away." The audience of military recruiters nodded approvingly. The Craxians had earned their reputation through centuries of brutal warfare, their thick carapaces and natural aggression making them formidable shock troops. Next came the Veltari, their crystalline forms refracting light as they demonstrated their energy weapons. "Our photon rifles can disintegrate targets at the molecular level," announced their representative, Captain Silvera. "Precision and power combined in perfect harmony." Species after species showcased their might. The insectoid hive minds with their overwhelming numbers, the mechanical synth cores with their tireless efficiency, the psychic Neth-Allens who could manipulate matter with thought alone. Each demonstration was more impressive than the last, weapons that could level cities and strategies that had conquered worlds. Then came humanity's turn. Captain Sarah Chen stepped forward, carrying what appeared to be an ancient projectile weapon. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some species having heard whispers about the newest additions to galactic civilization. Humans had only made contact 3 years ago, their technology seemingly primitive compared to the energy weapons and plasma cannons that dominated modern warfare. "This is Sergeant Michael Torres," Sarah announced, gesturing to a lean man in simple combat fatigues. "He'll be demonstrating human sniper techniques." Laughter erupted from several delegations. Commander Zekthon's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Projectile weapons? What is this? The Stone Age. Our sensors can detect incoming plasma charges from 50 kilometers away and automatically deploy countermeasures." "Your primitive bullets will never penetrate our kinetic barriers," added Captain Silvera, her crystalline voice tinkling like broken glass. "Besides, what good is one soldier against an army?" The human delegation remained silent as Torres set up his rifle on a bipod. The weapon looked crude compared to the sleek energy weapons surrounding it, its metal construction seeming almost barbaric next to the exotic materials and energy cells of advanced galactic technology. "The target is 12 kilometers away," Sarah announced. "A standard combat android, fully shielded and equipped with threat detection systems identical to Void Hunter bioforms." More laughter. 12 kilometers was barely within the range of most advanced energy weapons, and those required massive power cells and targeting computers. This human planned to use a simple projectile weapon at such distance? Torres settled behind his rifle, his breathing becoming slow and controlled. He didn't use any fancy targeting computers or energy sight systems. Instead, he peered through what appeared to be simple glass lenses, making minute adjustments to his position. "Is he actually going to try this?" whispered a hive mind drone to its neighbor. "Their primitive projectiles move so slowly, the target could simply step aside." "Perhaps humans are more entertainment than military asset," clicked Commander Zekthon. Torres remained motionless for nearly a minute, studying wind patterns and atmospheric conditions invisible to the advanced aliens surrounding him. His finger rested gently on the trigger, years of training compressed into this single moment. The shot, when it came, was almost silent compared to the thunderous plasma discharges and energy beams the aliens were accustomed to. A barely audible crack echoed across the demonstration field. 12 kilometers away, the combat android's head exploded in a shower of sparks and metal fragments. The massive robot, designed to withstand direct hits from plasma cannons, toppled backward like a felled tree. Silence fell over the assembly. Several alien species checked their instruments, certain there had been some mistake. The android's shields hadn't even activated. Whatever had struck it had been too fast and too small for the defensive systems to detect. "Impossible," breathed Captain Silvera. "Our sensors detected no energy discharge, no plasma buildup, nothing." "The projectile's velocity was hypersonic," Torres said quietly, beginning to disassemble his rifle. "By the time your target acquisition systems detect the muzzle flash, the bullet has already reached its destination." Commander Zekthan's 4 eyes narrowed. "A lucky shot. One target means nothing in real combat." Sarah smiled grimly. "Show them the valley targets, Sergeant." Torres nodded and reassembled his weapon with practiced efficiency. This time, he gestured toward a valley where multiple targets had been placed at various distances and elevations. Combat androids, armored vehicles, and even hovering drones. 23 targets in total, scattered across rough terrain that would challenge any conventional assault force. "All targets are equipped with the same threat detection and defensive systems," Sarah announced. "They're also mobile and will begin evasive maneuvers once they detect hostile activity." The alien observers focused their sensors on the valley, expecting to see the human fail miserably against moving targets. Single shots were one thing, but mobile opponents with active defenses were entirely different. Torres found his position and settled into the familiar rhythm of breath control and target acquisition. The first shot took out a drone hovering behind a rocky outcrop, invisible to most observers but perfectly clear through his scope. The second dropped an android that had been attempting to find cover behind a boulder. One by one, the targets fell. Torres moved with mechanical precision, each shot carefully calculated and executed. His bullets found gaps in armor, struck weak points in defensive systems, and connected with targets that seemed impossible to hit. An android, sprinting across open ground, stumbled and crashed as its optical sensors exploded. A hover tank's main gun pivoted wildly before going silent, its targeting computer destroyed by a projectile that had somehow threaded through its defensive grid. The assembled aliens watched in growing amazement and horror. This lone human was systematically destroying targets that would have required coordinated strikes from multiple heavy weapons teams. Worse, he was doing it with technology their sensors could barely detect. "How is this possible?" demanded a synth-core representative. "Our calculations show that organic beings cannot achieve such precision over those distances." Torres finally looked up from his rifle, his expression calm and professional. Human snipers train for years to read wind patterns, atmospheric pressure, target movement, and a dozen other variables. "We don't rely on computers to do our thinking for us." "But the speed of your projectiles," pressed Captain Silvera. "They move faster than our defensive systems can track." "Chemical propellants are more efficient than you might think," Sarah explained. "And unlike energy weapons, bullets don't require charging time, don't create heat signatures, and don't drain power cells. A single sniper can operate independently for weeks with just the ammunition they carry." Commander Zekthan studied the destruction in the valley below, his tactical mind finally grasping the implications. "Your warriors can strike without warning from distances where retaliation is impossible." "That's just basic marksmanship," Torres replied, beginning to clean his rifle. "This is what every human infantry soldier learns in basic training. We have specialists who can make these shots look amateur." The alien representatives exchanged glances, their earlier mockery replaced by something approaching fear. They had witnessed the impossible, a single soldier with primitive technology outperforming their most advanced weapon systems. "How many of these snipers does humanity possess?" asked a Neth Allen observer, his psychic voice trembling slightly. Sarah's smile was cold and predatory. "Every human military unit includes trained marksmen. We have specialized sniper schools on every colony world, and our special forces—" She let the sentence hang in the air like a threat. "But surely these techniques won't work against the Void Hunters." Commander Zekthon protested. "Their bioforms are massive, heavily armored, and can regenerate from most wounds." Torres looked up from his weapon maintenance, his eyes reflecting years of combat experience. "Size just makes them easier targets, and we have special ammunition for regenerating enemies." He held up a bullet, unlike any the aliens had seen. Where normal projectiles were simple metal, this one contained what appeared to be a small technological core. "High explosive fragmenting rounds with nanothermite cores," he explained casually. "They don't just punch holes, they incinerate everything in a meter radius from the inside out." The aliens stared at the innocuous-looking projectile, realizing they had grossly underestimated these newcomers. Humanity hadn't just brought numbers to the galactic community, they had brought warfare refined to a terrifying art form. As the demonstration concluded and species representatives began filing out to report to their superiors, whispered conversations filled the air. The balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted, and these humans with their primitive weapons might be the key to finally defeating the Void Hunter menace. But they were also a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous enemies were the ones you underestimated, and humanity was clearly a species that preferred to be underestimated. 3 months after the demonstration on Kepler 442b, the first joint human-alien operation was approved by the Galactic Defense Coalition. The target was Zerion Prime, a heavily fortified Void Hunter staging ground that had resisted 6 previous assault attempts. Each failure had cost thousands of lives and dozens of capital ships. Admiral Cortes of the Craxian Empire commanded the operation from aboard the massive dreadnought Wrath of Worlds. His tactical display showed the enemy positions in stark detail: biofortress structures that pulsed with organic energy, defensive towers that fired plasma streams capable of melting through starship armor, and swarms of hunter-killer organisms that had torn apart previous assault forces. The humans request permission to deploy their advance teams 12 hours before the main assault, reported his aide, Lieutenant Vex Tar. Admiral Cort Hess clicked his mandibles in irritation. 12 hours? That's not advance reconnaissance. That's suicide. The Void Hunters will detect any landing craft long before it reaches the surface. The humans insist they don't need landing craft. Sir? The Admiral's 4 eyes widened in disbelief. How do they plan to reach the planet? Teleportation technology is still theoretical even for the Nethalans. Lieutenant Vexitar consulted his datapad. They called it Halo insertion, sir. High altitude, low opening. They plan to drop from orbit. Drop? Like cargo containers? Apparently, sir. Admiral Cortes pulled up the human personnel files on his display. The list was surprisingly short. Only 30 individuals for an operation that previous attempts had required entire divisions. Their leader was listed as Colonel Marcus Webb, a specialist in something called deep reconnaissance and target elimination. 30 soldiers against a fortress that has withstood orbital bombardments, the Admiral muttered. Either humans are the bravest species in the galaxy, or the most foolish. Aboard the human stealth frigate, Silent Hunter. Colonel Webb conducted his final briefing. The ship's cramped quarters forced the team to huddle together around a holographic display showing Zerion Prime's surface. Intelligence indicates 17 primary biofortresses, each one a command nexus for the Void Hunter Hive network, Webb explained, his voice calm and professional. Our job isn't to assault these positions, it's to blind them. Staff Sergeant Lisa Park raised her hand. Rules of engagement, sir? Full spectrum elimination. These aren't sapient beings we're fighting. They're parasites that have consumed 3 star systems. Anything that moves and isn't wearing human tags is a target. The team consisted of humanity's finest long-range specialists. Snipers who could thread bullets through keyholes at impossible distances, spotters with cybernetic enhancements that let them see through walls, and demolitions experts who understood the delicate art of selective destruction. Drop zones are scattered across a 1,000-kilometer radius, Webb continued. You'll be operating independently for the first 8 hours, eliminating command organisms and disrupting their communication networks. Remember, the aliens think we're crazy for attempting this. Let's prove them right. The team checked their equipment one final time. Each sniper carried a rifle specifically designed for this mission. Weapons that fired depleted uranium rounds capable of penetrating bioarmor, explosive ammunition that would detonate inside target organisms, and specialized tracking bullets that could change course mid-flight to follow moving targets. 2 minutes to drop zone, announced the pilot. Weather reports show Category 4 atmospheric storms across the entire continent. Wind speeds averaging 200 kilometers per hour with irregular gusts up to 350. Several of the younger team members exchanged nervous glances. Those wind conditions would make accuracy nearly impossible for conventional marksmen. Adjust your calculations accordingly, Webb said simply. Storm conditions actually provide better cover. Their biosensors can't track us through the electromagnetic interference. The cargo bay doors opened to reveal the roiling surface of Xerion Prime far below. Lightning storms raged across alien continents, while massive biostructures pulsed with malevolent energy. The Void Hunter Fortress organisms were clearly visible even from orbit, their tentacled forms spreading like infections across the landscape. One by one, the snipers stepped into the void. Staff Sergeant Park plummeted through the storm-racked atmosphere, her specialized suit protecting her from the crushing winds and electrical discharges. Her heads-up display tracked her descent trajectory while compensating for the chaotic weather patterns. At exactly 3,000 meters, her parachute deployed silently, black fabric that rendered her virtually invisible against the storm clouds. She landed in a rocky canyon 8 kilometers from her assigned target, a massive biofortress that served as a communication relay for the northern continent. Her rifle was already assembled and loaded before her parachute finished settling to the ground. Through her scope, Park studied the alien structure. The fortress was a writhing mass of organic technology, its surface covered in sensory organs and defensive turrets. Smaller organisms scuttled across its exterior like antibodies, constantly patrolling for threats. Her first target was a node creature positioned on the fortress's highest spire. Intelligence suggested these organisms coordinated defensive responses across multiple fortress complexes. Eliminating them would disrupt the Void Hunter's ability to communicate with each other. Park settled into her firing position and began her breathing exercises. The wind was gusting at over 200 kilometers per hour, and she was shooting across a valley filled with electromagnetic interference from the storms. Any conventional calculation would have deemed the shot impossible, but Park had trained for impossible shots. She factored in wind direction, atmospheric pressure, electromagnetic field fluctuations, and the movement patterns of her target. The node creature was roughly humanoid in size, but moved with the fluid grace of a predator, never staying in one position for more than a few seconds. Park watched and waited, her rifle tracking the creature's movements while her mind calculated probabilities. She needed to predict not just where the target would be when her bullet arrived, but also account for its likely evasive reactions to any perceived threats. The shot came during a brief lull in the wind patterns. Her finger squeezed the trigger with mechanical precision, sending a depleted uranium round across 8 kilometers of hostile terrain. The node creature's head disappeared in a spray of alien blood and tissue. The organism toppled from its perch, its psychic death scream causing nearby creatures to writhe in apparent agony. Park was already tracking her next target before the first one hit the ground. Across the continent, similar scenes played out as human snipers systematically dismantled the Void Hunter command structure. Sergeant Chen put 3 rounds into a massive coordination organism from 12 kilometers away, each shot precisely placed to sever its neural connections. Corporal Williams eliminated an entire cluster of sensory organisms with a single explosive round, blinding the fortress to incoming threats. The Void Hunters began to respond, but their reactions were slow and confused. Their biosensors couldn't detect the human snipers through the storm interference, and their defensive systems were designed to counter energy weapons and massed assaults, not individual marksmen firing from extreme range. Admiral Court Hess watched the operation unfold from his command center, his tactical displays showing Void Hunter communication networks going dark one by one. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Our intelligence indicated those fortresses were impregnable from ground assault." "The humans aren't assaulting them, sir," replied Lieutenant Vextar, studying the incoming reports. "They're performing surgical strikes against specific target organisms. It's like they're operating on the enemy rather than fighting them." The Admiral watched another fortress complex go silent as its command organisms were eliminated. The Void Hunters were beginning to panic, sending out swarms of hunter-killers to search for the invisible attackers. But the human snipers had positioned themselves in carefully chosen locations that provided concealment and multiple escape routes. "Sir, the humans are requesting permission to begin Phase 2 of their operation," reported the communications officer. "Phase 2? They haven't finished eliminating the command organisms yet. According to Colonel Webb, they've eliminated 60% of the primary targets. He says they're ready to begin infrastructure degradation." Admiral Court Hess studied the tactical display. The Void Hunter fortresses were still largely intact, their defensive systems still operational. What exactly did the humans think they could accomplish with 30 soldiers? His answer came 20 minutes later when the first biofortress began to collapse. Staff Sergeant Park had moved to within 2 kilometers of her target, close enough to see the fine details of its organic architecture. Her mission had shifted from eliminating command organisms to something far more ambitious: structural demolition. The human engineers had studied captured Void Hunter biotechnology extensively, identifying key support organisms that maintained the structural integrity of their fortress complexes. These organisms were small, well-protected, and considered virtually impossible to target with conventional weapons. But they hadn't counted on human precision. Park's rifle now fired specialized rounds designed to penetrate bioarmor and deliver concentrated acid payloads directly to target organisms. Each shot was surgically placed to sever critical support structures, like cutting specific muscles in a living creature. As the support organisms died, the massive fortress began to sag and writhe. Its biomechanical systems, no longer properly coordinated, started to consume each other in desperate attempts to maintain stability. What had once been an imposing alien stronghold became a dying creature, slowly collapsing under its own weight. Similar scenes played out across Zarian Prime as human snipers systematically dismantled the Void Hunter infrastructure. They worked with the patience of surgeons and the precision of machines, each shot calculated to cause maximum disruption with minimal ammunition expenditure. Admiral Court Hess watched in amazement as fortress after fortress crumbled without a single shot being fired by his main fleet. The humans had achieved in 12 hours what previous assault forces had failed to accomplish in weeks of fighting. "Signal the human commander," he ordered. "Request status update and casualty reports." Colonel Webb's response was characteristically concise. "Mission proceeding ahead of schedule. 0 casualties, ready to begin Phase 3. Phase 3? The Admiral wondered aloud. What more could 30 humans possibly accomplish? His answer came at dawn, when the final Void Hunter strongholds began to explode from within. Dawn on Zarian Prime revealed a battlefield that defied everything Admiral Court Hess thought he knew about warfare. The massive Void Hunter biofortresses that had withstood orbital bombardments for months now lay in smoking ruins. But these weren't the shattered remains he expected from explosive demolition. They looked like they had been dissected by an impossibly precise surgeon. "Status report from all human teams," he demanded from his command center aboard the Wrath of Worlds. Colonel Webb's voice crackled through the communication array. All primary and secondary targets eliminated. Commencing final sterilization protocols. Sterilization protocols? Admiral Court Hess felt his blood run cold. Colonel, our intelligence indicates massive Void Hunter reinforcements are approaching this system. We need to begin evacuation procedures immediately. Negative, Admiral. We're exactly where we need to be. The Admiral's tactical display suddenly erupted with new contacts. Void Hunter bioships were emerging from hyperspace in numbers that dwarfed anything previously encountered. Hundreds of massive organism vessels, each one capable of consuming a moon, converged on Xerion Prime like antibodies responding to an infection. Colonel, you have incoming contacts that outnumber our entire fleet by 20-1. Your teams need immediate extraction. Webb's response was maddeningly calm. Sir, those reinforcements are exactly what we were hoping for. Human teams are in position for what we call a turkey shoot. Staff Sergeant Park crouched in a rocky outcrop overlooking what had been the largest Void Hunter fortress complex. The biostructure had collapsed 12 hours ago, but its death had triggered something unexpected. Massive tendrils now erupted from the planet's surface, not defensive structures, but communication organs reaching toward the approaching fleet. Through her scope, she could see the bioships beginning their descent toward the planet. Each vessel was a nightmare of organic engineering, its hull rippling with muscle tissue and studded with sensory organs. They moved with the fluid grace of living creatures, impossible to predict using conventional targeting computers. But Park wasn't using conventional targeting. She had spent the last 6 hours studying the movement patterns of incoming vessels, noting how they responded to atmospheric conditions and gravitational fields. Her rifle now carried specialized ammunition, rounds designed specifically for what the human teams called cascade elimination. The first shot struck a bioship's primary nerve cluster as it entered the upper atmosphere. The vessel immediately began convulsing, its navigation organs firing contradictory signals that sent it spiraling into its neighbor. The collision triggered a chain reaction as damaged biomatter leaked toxic compounds into adjacent ships. First cascade initiated, Park reported over her comm system. Multiple vessels compromised. Across the planet, 29 other human snipers opened fire simultaneously. Sergeant Chen targeted the largest bioship in her sector, a cathedral-sized organism that appeared to be directing the landing operations. Her explosive round penetrated its command chamber and detonated within its central nervous system. The creature's death throes caused it to broadcast panic signals across the entire fleet, disrupting formation patterns and causing dozens of ships to collide with each other. Corporal Williams had positioned himself to target the bioship's fuel organisms, specialized creatures that processed and stored the energy necessary for interstellar travel. His incendiary rounds ignited these living fuel cells, turning proud warships into blazing meteors that crashed into the planet below. The Void Hunter fleet, which had expected to face a demoralized enemy weakened by months of siege warfare, instead found itself under assault by invisible enemies who seemed to know exactly where to strike for maximum damage. Admiral Court Hess watched the tactical display in amazement as bioship after bioship fell from the sky. How are they doing this? Those vessels are shielded against energy weapons. Their armor can withstand direct hits from plasma cannons. Sir, the human ammunition appears to be designed specifically for bio-targets, reported Lieutenant Vextar. Their projectiles are penetrating the organic armor and delivering payloads directly to vital systems. 30 soldiers are destroying an entire invasion fleet? It appears so, sir. Colonel Webb's voice cut through the bridge chatter. Admiral, recommend you maintain distance from the planet. We're about to initiate what humans call a domino effect. Before the Admiral could respond, the largest Void Hunter command ship entered the atmosphere directly above the former fortress complex. This vessel was different from the others, less obviously organic, more heavily armored and crackling with bioelectrical energy that suggested sophisticated defensive systems. Staff Sergeant Park studied the massive ship through her scope. This was clearly the target she had been waiting for, the command organism that coordinated the entire Void Hunter presence in this sector. Eliminating it would cripple their operations across multiple star systems. But the ship was protected by layers of bio-armor and energy fields that made conventional targeting impossible. Its surface crawled with defensive organisms, each one capable of intercepting incoming projectiles or energy blasts. Park smiled grimly and loaded a round unlike any other in her arsenal. The bullet contained what human engineers called a biological virus payload, not a disease in any conventional sense, but a collection of nanomachines designed to rewrite biomechanical systems from within. The round had cost more to manufacture than most starfighters, but its potential impact was beyond calculation. She took careful aim at what her briefings had identified as the ship's primary coordination nexus, a pulsing organ visible through gaps in its armor plating. The shot would need to penetrate multiple layers of protection and deliver its payload with surgical precision. Park steadied her breathing and squeezed the trigger. The bullet struck its target with a barely audible impact. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. The command ship continued its descent, its surface still crawling with defensive organisms. Then the changes began. The defensive organisms started attacking each other, their reprogrammed neural systems identifying friendly forces as threats. The ship's bioelectrical systems began firing randomly, causing massive internal damage as the vessel's own weapons turned inward. Within minutes, the entire command structure was consuming itself in an orgy of mechanical cannibalism. But the true genius of the human strategy became apparent when the dying command ship crashed into the planet below. The nanomachines in Park's special ammunition had been designed to spread through biomechanical networks. As the command ship's systems died, they transmitted the viral payload to every connected Void Hunter organism on the planet and in the surrounding fleet. Admiral Court Hess watched in horrified fascination as the Void Hunter infection spread like wildfire. Bioships throughout the fleet began turning on each other, their corrupted navigation systems sending them crashing into allied vessels. Ground-based organisms that had survived the initial assault started attacking their own infrastructure, tearing apart communication networks and defensive installations. "Sir, the human commander is requesting fleet-wide communication access," reported the communications officer. "Put him through." Colonel Webb's voice echoed across every ship in the Coalition fleet. "All vessels, this is human command. Xerion Prime is now classified as a sterilization zone. Recommend immediate deployment of orbital bombardment protocols to eliminate remaining biomass before the infection spreads beyond this system." Admiral Court Hess found his voice. "Colonel, how did you know the enemy would respond in such numbers?" "Void Hunters are hive organisms, Admiral. They're biologically compelled to respond to distress signals from their colonies. We knew that eliminating their ground forces would trigger a massive rescue attempt." "And you planned for this?" "Sir, humans have been setting traps for dangerous animals since before we discovered fire. The Void Hunters are just another predator that needs to be culled." As Coalition forces began their orbital bombardment of the dying Void Hunter fleet, Admiral Court Hess reflected on what he had witnessed. 30 human soldiers had accomplished what entire battle fleets had failed to achieve. They hadn't just defeated the enemy, they had turned the Void Hunter's own biology against them. "Colonel, I need to ask, how many more operations like this are your people capable of conducting?" Webb's response sent chills through every alien officer on the bridge. "Sir, this was just a field test. We have 12 more star systems identified for similar operations, and our weapons engineers are already developing improved ammunition based on what we learned here." "Improved how?" "Faster-acting viral payloads, longer-range delivery systems, and self-replicating nanomachines that can spread between star systems." The Void Hunters think they're apex predators, Admiral. They're about to learn what it means to be prey. As the last Void Hunter bioship fell burning into Zarion Prime's atmosphere, Admiral Cortez realized that the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted permanently. Humanity hadn't just joined the galactic community. They had become its deadliest guardian. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a disturbing thought began to take shape. If humans could do this to the Void Hunters, what could they do to any species that threatened them? The demonstration on Kepler 442b had shown alien representatives that humanity possessed superior marksmanship. The battle for Zarion Prime had proven that they possessed superior tactics. But this final operation revealed something far more terrifying. Humans possessed a strategic understanding of warfare that treated entire species as problems to be solved. As the Coalition fleet prepared to return to friendly space, encrypted communications began flowing between the various alien delegations. Emergency sessions were called, defense budgets were quietly increased, and more than one species began developing contingency plans for a future where humanity might view them as threats. The Void Hunters had learned too late that humanity was not prey. The rest of the galaxy was determined not to make the same mistake.